Welcome to Winthering Away, narrated by Adam Amir, written by a person who wishes to remain unknown. Mr. Winther is a man displaced from an older, idealistic America. An America where it was socially acceptable to complain openly in public that coloreds are prospering too well. That auto manufacturers thought it would be a fantastic idea to make a 2.5-ton building on wheels propelled by a big, beefy V8 gas guzzler during an energy crisis. A time where you could work at the steel factory from 9 to 5 every day for 40 years, and one day you might just be able to buy that Chevrolet Impala your baby boomer heart was set out on. Mr. Winther is the human equivalent of a 1969 Cadillac DeVille in 2018. Both used to mean something back in their heyday, but are nothing but run-down husks of themselves in 2018. For all you Gen Zs listening, Cadillac used to mean something back in the day. Cadillac represented attainable American wealth and luxury. No one envied you for driving a Cadillac. They respected you. In their minds, they told themselves, so I could be like Andy one day and have a DeVille of my own. The Cadillac was truly unique. Ostrich leather, unique body panel, unique headlights, and unique instrument clusters. Not one part on a Cadillac was shared with Chevrolet or GMC offerings. The Cadillac was the peacock of the flock, the piece de resistance of American ingenuity and culture. Despite all that, nothing good can last forever. Slowly it starts to wither away from owner to owner, year to year. Grandpa bought the car outright back in cash back in '69 and loved it more than Grandma. He would clean it every Sunday, only to take it out on days when the average temperature was 67 degrees Fahrenheit and when humidity was non-existent. He loved that car as much as he could until your Uncle Jim dented the bumper and scratched the silky red paint with his rusted-out '61 Plymouth Belvedere after receiving vehicular fellatio in the parking lot of McDonald's from his cheerleader girlfriend. Grandpa gets angry, sits on the back porch, vigorously cleaning his M1 Garand from the water wall, drinking an icy cold Bud Light, contemplating killing his own son. So, he asks your dad to go out with him to fix the car, and your 17-year-old dad obliges and hopes that this act will lead him to inheriting the car before college. Time passes, and eventually the car looks brand new. Grandpa wipes the sweat off his brow and places his hand on his hips and looks at the car in a different light. He looks at the car like you would at your girlfriend when she tells you after an expensive steak dinner that she always had feelings for your best friend but only stuck with you because you went overseas. And as the two of you stand outside of the steakhouse, impatiently waiting for the valet, you look into her eyes that brilliantly reflect the shimmering LED lights wrapped around the leafless tree, the cold wind blowing her hair across her face. Her nose wrinkles from the cold, and you see your reflection in her warm brown eyes. In any other circumstance, you would move to embrace her lovingly and be reminded of why you fell in love. Instead, that feeling is replaced with a general feeling of disgust and mistrust that makes you feel stick your hands into the pockets of your wool coat, cough, and look down the street for the valet bringing your Audi A8 as you pretend to be alright. Then it's a long, awkward ride home in silence, listening to conservative talk show hosts. That's because if any love song plays over the satellite radio, you're about to be a lane closure on the George Washington Bridge during rush hour. Well, it's been quite some time now. Grandma and Grandpa are gone, and the family doesn't really talk to each other anymore since Aunt Kathy tried to modify Grandpa's will so her husband Chad can inherit her house. Uncle Jim owns strip clubs in Miami, and Dad works at Goldman Sachs in New York, so no one ever talks to him. So no one ever talks to each other except on Christmas, which is more of a brief conference call than a family get-together. Grandpa's DeVille was sold at auction to a teenager by the name of Michael in Connecticut. Michael tried to take care of it, but as all teens do, he stopped caring. The leather became worn out and cracked. Human reproductive fluid lined the aging shag carpet in the rear passenger seat accommodations. Litter was strewn about the dashboard and floors. Michael installed a gaudy third-party radio system. paint started to chip, so Michael painted it with matte black because it looks lit. The car was left out in the cold and began rusting badly. Almost everything about the car was dying, except the engine that coughed to life. Soon the engine wouldn't fire on all cylinders, and Michael got fed up. So he went to a local farm and left it in an open field to die a painful death, to be put out to pasture, separated from the family that loved and cherished it. In many ways, Mr. Winther is just like that Cadillac DeVille. In his prime, he was something special, but after years of aging and being passed from one woman to another, he is left feeble. His body ailing, but the mind is just like that 7.7-liter V8, always clinging onto life, one more winter closer to dying. One day, like that Cadillac, his family will leave him in Florida, where he will be hoarded out by National Honor Society students for community service hours. But once they have their 20 hours, he will be left alone to die, just as the DeVille. I only drink IPAs. Mr. Winther is a baby boomer through and through. He likes his deli meat cut thin and his music pure Led Zeppelin. He knows what he wants, and when he wants it, Mr. Winther is not afraid to call the underpaid millennial working at the deli counter at Adams Fair Convulsion a stupid bitch for cutting his prosciutto too thick for his pear and prosciutto carpaccio. Winther then loudly exclaims that it should be 0.4 millimeters thick and that millennials are lazy before slapping the package of fatty pork onto the counter. Release a sound akin to that of a whip making contact with flesh, and briskly walks away as the other customers randomly inspect items as to not make any eye contact with this enraged baby boomer. Winther makes his way to checkout aisle, cutting off an 80-something-year-old woman who only had 2 items in her basket, forcing said woman, who appears to already be in enough pain by the simple act of standing, to further wait while he unloads $200 worth of groceries item by item. Winther is met by a young cashier. Young and full of ambition, she says, "Good morning, sir. How is your day going?" He replies, "Good enough." They exchange a few words until Winther's wife appears, holding half an eaten chocolate chip muffin and an open bottle of Diet Pepsi. She wears ill-fitting yoga pants that hug all the places that shouldn't be hugged, and a gray jogging hoodie with a pink PTO shirt underneath. She barges past the 80-something-year-old woman with great irreverence. The older woman winces in pain as she sidesteps to regain her balance. Winther's wife looks at the young girl with disgust and contempt, barking out orders at the young girl. "Paper, no plastic. I want paper and plastic. No, I want this to be a separate transaction." Mr. Winther stands there, shrugs and sighs as this train wreck occurs in front of him. The young girl's face becomes flushed, and Winther's wife asks for the manager. The cashier obliges, and the manager completes the transaction as the young lady shields herself from Mrs. Winther, using the manager as protection, both emotionally and physically. The two of them make their way to their 2008 burgundy-colored GMC Yukon, walking in front of traffic, completely ignorant of their surroundings. Mr. Winther's wife starts hysterically crying as she questions her husband's loyalty and hurls insults about the young cashier. As Mr. Winther is bombarded by insults and threats of divorce, he looks up at the TGI Fridays adjacent to the store. He can only think of going to the bar later tonight as his wife drinks cheap Shanghai and Sauvignon Blanc in the bathroom as the grandkids watch Paw Patrol on their cheaply made 40-inch sharp quad pixel TV that was being advertised by the gay Asian guy from Star Trek in 2011. He loads the food back into the back of his Yukon that is conveniently parked in 2 handicapped spots because his wife has lumbago and is qualified to get a handicap sticker for their cheaply produced Great Recession-era SUV. He hops in his Yukon and his wife struggles to slide herself into the slippery and cheap leather seats produced in Newark, New Jersey, of all places. Mr. Winther turns the behemoth on, burning a quarter tank of gas just from that one action, and blasts Rush Limbaugh as he speeds through the parking lot, asserting his dominance over the Prius drivers. The time has come for Winther to go to the bar. His grandkids are sleeping after eating 2 heaping servings of beefaroni each. His wife is crying in the master bedroom, listening to The Sweetest Love by Robin Thicke as she clutches her yellowing wedding dress that she can no longer fit into and lugs down more Chianti than anyone else at her AA meetings. Mr. Winther wears an untucked button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The colors can only be described as Italian fig-leaf parsley and Chiancal blue, or whatever that means. He wears mom jeans and work boots. Mr. Winther is the man's man. He is sex appeal. Mr. Winther hops into his 2006 burnt orange Subaru Forester and travels down to New Paltz. On the way there, he loads into the CD tray a mixtape he had his son make because computering is hard. It contains stereotypical boomer dribble like "The Boys Are Back in Town," "Hollywood Nights," "In the Air Tonight," "Highway to Hell," and "Higher Love." He arrives at Jarred Up Wine Pub in New Paltz on Main Street. He parks his car and walks past the interracial couple smiling, actually enjoying life, instead of meandering through it like it's some shitty obstacle course at Crunch Fitness, like Mr. Winther. Mr. Winther pushes his way past millennials like Moses splitting the Red Sea or a crippled person in a wheelchair rolling down the aisle at Trader Joe's. He pushes his way past 50 filthy millennials before approaching the bartender, and the bartender looked like some liberal gay tranny to Mr. Winther. Mr. Winther approached the tranny and in full confidence asked at a wine pub, "What kind of IPAs do you have on tap?"